I'm talking to Campbell Fleming, Head of Distribution at Standard Life Aberdeen. How are you today, Campbell?
Great, Barnaby. Nice to see you.
Thanks. Good to see you too. It's nice to have a bit of sunshine. It must make you feel like home.
Well, just having had a bit of a scare with skin cancer, I'm quite glad it's not exactly like home.
Are you over that?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
But I would, all your viewers should keep an eye on this type of stuff because damage that's done years ago, anything that changes in your skin, get it checked out. It can be quite deadly.
Well, I'm glad you're all right. I hope, has that been the worst thing that's happened to you in 2020?
Well, apart from COVID, the COVID crisis, yep. It's been a tricky year so far.
So while we've all been in lockdown, you've been battling with skin cancer.
Well, no, it's not battling. It's just that there was a small lesion on my back. I had it checked out quickly, and it was taken out. But when these things happen, the scary thing is that it might be an SCC, a squamous cell carcinoma, or a melanoma, and you should just be mindful of those because they can have pretty profound implications for your health.
For sure. So that apart, COVID, lockdowns, how's 2020 has been a pretty unpredictable year, hasn't it, really, Campbell?
Yeah, certainly. No one thought it'd be like this when it started, and it was quite interesting because I was at Davos at the start of the year, and everyone was starting the year feeling quite negative. It was funny, the year before everyone was starting the year being quite positive, and it ended pretty toughly. And so everyone started this year, quite negative. And it was really interesting because I was at an event there, and the professor, Neil Ferguson, said it's always interesting being at Davos because the Davos wisdom is often very wrong. And this was on the 20th of January or something. And he said, by the way, there's a virus happening in Wuhan at the moment that could have quite serious implications because we're overdue by about 75 years, a serious pandemic. And wow. It was pretty amazing that, that was raised. And that wasn't an issue for the Davos consensus at the time.
That's very interesting. Has that changed your has that changed your perspective in terms of who you listen to, where you get your perspectives from?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't think so. I mean, Davos is an interesting place. We'd previously been involved in it because we get to see over a 3-day period, about up to about 75 of the most senior people of our top clients. So I worked out that if you tried to do that in a normal course of a year, it'd probably take you about 3 years to actually see them all because of diaries and things. So people are there. They want to talk about business. They want to talk about important issues, and they want to talk about what they can do to do make some sort of impact. And the fact that everyone's there and they're out of their business as usual environment means that conversations are usually quite different and invariably interesting. So we liked going there. We did it extremely cheaply, and we'd become somewhat of an institution. Keith Skeoch would present, economic papers there because he is, a top economist. Martin would, be available for commentary, and there are a few of us there for other conversations. So it was a good event, but we've decided not to do it next year because, it's probably not the right time to be gathering in what people see as quite an elite spot with the world's wealthy to, explain what they should be doing. So we decided that we can better spend the money in communities near us or around the world. So we won't be attending Davos next year.
That's do you think that the elite in general will change the way that they interact with the rest of us?
Yeah, it's a great word, the elite. I think they already were starting to. I mean, everyone talks about ESG. These people, that group, senior clients and asset owners have been talking about this for several years now. We're pretty blessed in that, the top 500 signatories of the UN PRI, almost 2/3 of them are clients of ours. They like our credentials when it comes to, stewardship, environmental, long-term impact. And if you look at what the firm's done, we've been investing this way since 1992. We've got a series of, sustainable funds, impact funds, and, we've been leading the way with a terrific initiative with the Big Exchange to create the world's first social impact platform.
Big Exchange or Big Issue?
The Big Exchange. The Big Issue is a partner in it, and they're using that. And it's, we've got a series of competitors and suppliers who've created this platform. We did some research and established that about 67% of the people in the UK would like to invest with impact, but they didn't know how to. So we feel we're filling a need, and it's brilliant to be working with the Big Issue.
And is stewardship and impact something that's talked about a great deal at Standard Life Aberdeen?
Yeah, huge. It's integral to all our investment processes. Because, as long-term quality investors and, also mindful of, the impact of events and what happens on markets, if you get in any of those vectors wrong these days, the effect on your market capitalisation or your, economic outlook is significant. So, that's a very important thing. Not only is it the right thing to do by the planet and our communities, but, having well-governed companies that are good citizens, both, ethically, corporately, environmentally and socially, means they have better businesses. And, if you want to have a look at that, there's plenty of examples about where people have got this wrong and wiped billions off their market cap. And so, we're very mindful of that. And then the second thing is stewardship. If you look at the people we act for, they want to make sure that we're voting for or down the right and wrong proposals and the like, and changing corporate behaviour. And if you look at, a great example of this, the top 20 asset owners in the world are signatories to a carbon reduction program, and they've written to some of the largest producers of carbon on the planet and told them that if they don't reduce it, they'll be voting down their proposals in REMCOs and compensation things. And, these things, this is profound influence that's being wielded, and not many people learn about it.
It's interesting, talking about the climate change, it's very interesting to think how long it's taken for that to reach boardrooms and for investment managers to take the type of action that you are right at the forefront of taking. And
yeah.
Look at a movement like Black Lives Matter. It feels to me like reactions are happening an awful lot quicker. Would that be your...
Yeah, I think, that to my mind is just, it's a profound movement. I grew up in country New South Wales, and we saw grinding poverty, and we saw, very real, racism and bigotry happening. And it wasn't until 30 years later that the Prime Minister of Australia actually apologised to the Australian Aboriginal people. And, so these things, I think it's also the power of social media and the fact that now everyone's a reporter and everyone's a commentator, and, every now and then something sparks the zeitgeist of the time, and a movement builds off it. And, I think it's incredibly powerful. I mean, it's made me reassess my own thoughts about many of these things, as, despite coming from, a difficult background economically and the like, I'm absolutely and relatively privileged to many of my, co-inhabitants on this planet. And you've got to think about that. It's actually one of the interesting things about COVID is how much time you spent with your family and actually learning from you know, my sons who are now developing their own ideas and, you know, becoming adults in their own right, and they are very different and motivated by things that are quite different to my motivations, you know, at their age. And I think this next generation are going to be more informed, more motivated, more energized about these things than the prior ones.
From a personal perspective, I found COVID has made me retreat to my own values somewhat. So closer family, things which I hold dear. But the Black Lives Matter movement has actually made me question a lot of those values. So coming from a white family, you know, I was public school educated in Britain, etc. And I haven't quite worked out the synergies or perhaps not the synergies between these values. And it leaves, and I'm sure I wouldn't be alone, it leaves me in a certain sense of uncertainty. And I think it'll take a little bit of time for me personally, and I'm sure I'm talking about perhaps the UK as a country, to work out where it sits with all of these things.
Yeah, and you sort of feel the debate around it slightly stifled because, you know, some of the facts are severely unpalatable, right, on all sides of the discussion.
Yep.
And, you know, I find it very difficult to have a fact-based conversation these days. It's, you know, it's very, it's countercultural to talk about facts, and it's more about what people like as opposed to, you know, what's potentially true. And even then, the lenses on truth are affected by, you know, your background and your values. So, yeah, I think people are really questioning. But, you know, Britain's been an incredible Western liberal democracy that's had a profound impact upon the world. And at the same time, it's also had a negative impact on the world. But, you know, at the end of the day, in the long term, I think it's largely got a lot of these enormous historical calls right. But, you know, there's legacy and implications from them. And, you know, I think the way society now addresses them and, you know, how we can give a true economic and social opportunity for all is probably the biggest issue of the day.
I agree. And how do you think that's affected the role of us as leaders?
Well, you know, I think it just imposes on you to be really thoughtful about how you put things. Yeah. And, you know, because, and again, that also can affect the debate, because if it's too thoughtful, then perhaps people miss the point. But, you know, it's just really interesting to me to observe how different my sons are, how different their friends are, and how important these things are to them. And, you know, I wouldn't say I've ignored them, but that said, I probably haven't done as much as I could have done about them. And then, you know, we've been having, you know, we as a firm, we're pretty good on this, you know, in terms of diversity statistics and, you know, our commitments to an inclusive business. But we've still got a hell of a long way to go. And, you know, as a 6'1" sports-loving Australian heterosexual Christian, you know, I'm going to bring a whole series of baggage to my thoughts, views, and discussions that are going to make people put me in a box or slightly uncomfortable, no matter how mindful I am about these things. So, you know, so it's always, I think you just have to be really mindful and really think about your presence and impact on what you're saying, because the unintended consequences of a mischosen word or phrase that may have been entirely acceptable to you is deeply, deeply offensive to many people. And we just got to think about that. And they're uncomfortable about it. And one of the great things about this BLM movement and what's happening is, you know, we've been able to have conversations with, you know, people who are black or whatever other you want to ascribe to them.
Yeah.
And, they've said from time to time they felt very uncomfortable. And, I don't want to work in a business where people feel uncomfortable in it. Right? The only thing they should feel uncomfortable about is, they're not doing enough for our clients and customers, or not doing the best job they can. But, if they feel uncomfortable about issues and things, then, I'm not doing my job well. So, that's been quite a revelation and to me.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think diversity has become diversity has been an undoubted force. It's proven in many ways to be something that helps companies perform much better. But I think from an individual perspective, having the diversity of perspectives around me that help me voice what I'm thinking, or the vision, or whatever I'm trying to achieve, is something that's become not just helpful, it's become absolutely essential.
Yeah.
And,
our kids, my kids,
further up the agenda, doesn't it?
Yeah, and my kids are in truly diverse cultures,
Yep.
and experience, and they don't see the colour of people's skin. That because that's situation normal, and it'd be great if everyone just became equally as approached it as in the same way.
Do you think the path to that is going to be a bumpy one?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so do I.
And it's going to be incredibly confronting to us all. And the courage of some of these people is huge. It's very significant. And I just hope it's addressed with non-violent means, and orderly, because when it does turn violent and it does turn disorderly, then that's when the situation becomes conflated and even worse. And someone sent me the other day a YouTube of Senator Bobby Kennedy's, Robert Kennedy's, off-the-cuff comments when Martin Luther King was assassinated. And in a society now, everyone has a teleprompter or a script writer. To see someone talk without notes, reference a Greek poet and quote several verses just off his head, you just show that learning and education and being gracious and educated is quite an important thing. And it was incredibly moving. And you sort of compare that today with the leadership that you see around the place, and it didn't bear comparison. And what made that more tragic is several weeks later, I think he too was killed. So
let's talk about some of the optimistic bits of the future, Campbell.
Conversations take you a turn.
Well, it is
a bit profound.
We know all the bad stuff. Tell us about the good stuff. What are you looking forward to?
Well, I'm looking forward to, I'm in the office today. I can't work from home at the moment. There's a few things going on. So there's a couple of important video conferences. So I've managed to come in, and there's 3 or 4 of us here. It's pretty eerie.
On your bike?
Big bike for me to get on at Barnaby. So, but anyway.
How do you get in, Campbell?
Oh, I came in public transport, masked up. So it's easy. There's no one, it's no one on the roads, no one, on the trains. So, I'm looking forward to, I've missed the community of people I work with, and I caught up with a couple of my colleagues yesterday, all socially distanced, of course. I actually had a dinner at a restaurant last week with an old friend. So, these things that we just took absolutely for granted, I'm looking forward to some of those coming back. I think it's going to be a tough period for the industry and for economies. And let's just hope that we're we don't see a second wave come back, and let's just hope that, you know, the enormous amount of stimulus that have gone into markets and communities and economies works, and, you know, we can move on from this. But I think there's going to be some profound changes in, you know, the way we work, the way we live, and, you know, the way we invest.
You're a generally optimistic chap, though, Campbell Fleming.
Yes.
So,
but if you're head of distribution, if you're not optimistic, you're in the wrong job.
Well, are we? I mean, 2020 is not looking like it's going to be a great year. Is 2021 going to be the year of the return, or 22, or what?
Well, Barnaby, I think you'd be quite surprised. And, you know, if you look at our statement, our trading results in May, I think we surprised people with the strength of the flows and the fact that, you know, we were inching towards getting in net inflow again.
Right.
So, you know, the great thing about Standard Life Aberdeen and its investment arm, Aberdeen Standard Investments, is that, you know, our range of products, our brand, our client footprint, and our geographic spread is significant. So, you know, we truly have a diversified business by products, by clients, by geographies, by channels, and by people. So, you know, I'm quite encouraged by this because, you know, there has been a flight to quality, there has been a flight to substance, and there has been a flight to, you know, people who do what they say they'll do. And so I'm quite encouraged by that trend, and I'm quite encouraged by where the firm sits within that.
So, Campbell, if you were talking to a new leader of an investment management business, perhaps someone that was joining fairly shortly, what sort of advice would you give them?
The first thing I'd say, it's a long-term business, and we invest for the long term, and we build partnerships for long term, and, you know, we provide careers for the long term. So, you know, please, you know, while everyone else are losing their heads around you, this industry's got to stay calm and focused and do what it says it'll do. The second thing I'd say is that, you know, having a footprint that we do allows us to get insights from and give insights to customers and clients from all around the world. So don't form an opinion on what you're experiencing immediately, because it's quite different to you know, what we're experiencing elsewhere. And thirdly, you know, I used to be a lawyer, but I gave that up. You know, I believe that profoundly asset management companies being entrusted with the lifetime capital of people and institutions do have a very important role to play in society. And, you know, I don't forget that mission and that purpose either.
Well, Campbell, we've talked about Black Lives Matter.
Yep.
We've talked about climate change. There are a host of other issues that we don't need to go into because we're optimistic characters. What role do you think asset management does have as an industry in terms of addressing some of the world's issues?
Well, you know, a little bit earlier we were talking about impact on carbon emissions. We spoke about stewardship. We spoke about my own personal experience, that is, you know, helping people get out of poverty and get educated. And, you know, being a thoughtful and profound manager of capital and how you deploy that is, you know, going to be even more important in the next 20 years than it's ever been, especially as society transitions, whether it be to low carbon economies, to more impactful economies, more socially just economies, and having reliable large firms staffed by professionals to help economies and societies do that, I think is crucially important to their success.
So Campbell Fleming, tell me, would 20-year-old Campbell Fleming be impressed with where the slightly older Campbell Fleming is today?
Well, Barnaby, he'd be happy that he kept all his hair. I've almost one of the good things about COVID is I've managed to shed quite a bit of weight, almost back to my my university weight, which is encouraging. It just shows you if you're not on planes and going out to dinner quite a lot, then there is an opportunity to eat well and get fitter. So I think he'd be quite pleased about that. I think he'd probably say he's, despite some of the most blessed and privileged things that he's done, have kept the most, if not all, of my down-to-earth values. And hopefully those people would say me and say, well, he's still a good bloke.
Do you have any advice for 20-year-old Campbell?
Work hard and be good to your mum.
Very good. Well, Campbell...
No, but I think the interesting thing, Barnaby, is that I don't think anyone ever prepares you for how tough parenthood is. And secondly, how tough it is to lead people. And, you know, the two of them are an interesting Venn diagram there between, you know, being a good parent and being a good leader, because, you know, it's all about modelling roles and rewarding the right behaviours and also trying to do themselves. And, you know, it's been interesting being so close to the family, you know, because they normally only see me briefly in the evenings and for weekends, and, you know,
Yep.
they're, you know, probably like you. You know, you've been with them 24/7 pretty much for 5 months or so now. So, yeah, I think a lot of us have reconnected with our families in a way that, you know, is lucky to enjoyed their own homes. You know, we've been lucky to have a nice home that my wife's, you know, made very comfortable and, you know, great, and had some, you know, a really privileged time in that regard. But you know, my thoughts go out to some of my colleagues and friends who, you know, have had young children to care for, and also, you know, may not get access to gardens and things like that. It's been a tough time for them, and that's one of the reasons why I'm keen for us to get some people back to work, because I think some of them just need to change the scene. And thank God the summer's hopefully a nice one, and people will be able to get a bit of holiday and a bit of a break in. And they've got to take it, because, you know, your day can just be one long continuum, and, you know, get off the grid and enjoy yourself.